What if peace isn't something you find, but something you clear space for? We often chase peace like it's hiding in the next vacation, the next success, the next person. But what if it's been buried under the noise we refuse to let go? The Stoics believed peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of clarity. And clarity only comes when you remove what's cluttering the mind. We often imagine peace as something we need to go find, like it's sitting somewhere out there, waiting for the perfect moment, the right place, or the right people to finally make us feel calm. We chase it through achievement, through relationships, through status, thinking, once I get there, then I'll feel better. But the Stoics would stop us right there. They'd say, peace isn't something you find. It's something you build, deliberately, patiently, and quietly, from the inside out. Because real peace doesn't come from having a perfect life. It doesn't come from a to-do list finally cleared, or from every plan going smoothly. It comes from letting go of what doesn't serve you. Letting go of what clutters your mind, what stirs unnecessary emotion, what pulls you away from the present moment. It comes from creating space, inside your own head and heart, for stillness to settle in. But here's the part we often miss. Most of us don't lose our peace in dramatic moments. We lose it in the small, constant habits that chip away at our calm. We lose it by overthinking conversations we can't change, by chasing validation that never satisfies, by holding on to fears, grudges, and stories we've long outgrown but never questioned. And the truth is, peace can't grow in a mind that's already full. The Stoics didn't believe in adding more to feel better. They believed in subtracting what blocks the way. They asked not, what do I need to gain? But what do I need to release? What habits are weighing you down? What patterns keep repeating because you haven't paused to examine them? What emotional noise keeps you from hearing your own clarity? In this video, we'll explore 15 specific things you can begin eliminating, starting today, to create more stillness, focus, and inner strength in your life. Each one is grounded in timeless Stoic philosophy. Each one reminds us that silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That simplicity isn't emptiness, it's freedom. And that self-awareness isn't selfish, it's the foundation of all peace. If you're tired of feeling overstimulated, overwhelmed, and off balance, the answer isn't more. It's less distraction, less noise, less resistance to the present moment. 1. Constant complaining, focus on solutions, not problems. We've all done it. Something goes wrong, and our first instinct is to vent. We complain. It feels good, like a short-term emotional release. But over time, that habit becomes something else. It becomes a lens. You start noticing only what's broken. You train your brain to focus on what's wrong, and soon, that's all you see. The Stoics saw this as dangerous, not just for your mindset, but for your spirit. They believed that constant complaining is one of the fastest ways to weaken your character and poison your soul. Why? Because complaining feels like doing something, but it isn't. It steals energy that could be used for action. It shifts your focus from responsibility to helplessness, and it keeps you stuck. Even Marcus Aurelius, who led during wars, plagues, and betrayal, never gave in to the temptation of self-pity. Instead, he wrote to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That wasn't optimism, it was strategy. A conscious decision not to waste strength on what couldn't be controlled. Because here's the truth. Complaining doesn't fix the problem, it just drains your peace. Worse, it turns you into someone who expects life to go wrong. You stop seeking solutions and start identifying as the victim of your own story. But there's another way. When something goes wrong, stop. Don't react. Observe. Ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, then your task is acceptance. If it's yes, then your next step is action. This is the Stoic path. It doesn't deny reality or avoid pain. It simply refuses to pour energy into what leads nowhere. And when you stop complaining, something shifts. You become more creative. You become more trusted. You become calmer, not because life is easier, but because you're clearer. So next time you feel the pull to complain about your job, your partner, your health, even the weather, pause, take a breath, and ask, what can I do? And if there's truly nothing to be done, then ask, what can I let go of? Because peace doesn't come from everything going right. It comes from training your mind not to break when things go wrong. TWO, comparing yourself to others, your only true competition is yourself. Peace begins to disappear the moment we start measuring ourselves by someone else's journey. And these days, comparison isn't just occasional, it's constant. You open your phone and there it is. Another highlight reel. Another success story. Someone you know just hit a new milestone, made a big move, or posted a perfect photo. It's louder, faster, shinier than what's happening in your own life. And something deep inside you whispers, why not me? That whisper, so subtle, so quiet, is where the suffering starts. The Stoics warned us long before the age of likes and followers. Comparison is a thief. It doesn't just steal your joy, it steals your direction. Because the moment you look too long at someone else's lane, you begin to drift out of your own. And here's the real danger. Comparison makes you forget who you are. It turns your attention outward, to applause, to recognition, to image, and away from the one thing that truly matters, your alignment with yourself. Epictetus once said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because real growth isn't always pretty. It doesn't always come with approval. It's not made to impress the crowd, it's made to shape you from the inside. And growth, more often than not, is invisible. It's quiet. It happens in moments when no one's watching, when you choose discipline over distraction, clarity over chaos, patience over pressure. But when you compare yourself to others, you begin to believe a lie. That your worth depends on how you stack up, on whether you're ahead, on whether you've accomplished enough. You start defining success not by inner peace, but by outer metrics, money, status, recognition. And slowly, you begin to perform instead of progress. Here's what the Stoics would tell you. Your only task is to be better than the person you were yesterday. That's it. That's the only race. And the moment you stop looking sideways, something powerful happens. You start moving forward. But let's be honest, comparison is addictive. It's easy, it's automatic, but it's also incredibly misleading. You see someone's best moments and compare them to your hardest ones. You see their highlight reel and forget they have valleys too. You notice their success, but not their struggle. Their gain, but not their grief. And that builds a distorted mirror, one that always makes you feel like you're behind. Like you're not enough, like you'll never catch up. But what if, instead of asking, how do I measure up to them? You asked, am I growing in the ways that matter to me? What if success wasn't about being ahead of others, but being at peace with your own choices, proud of your own effort, in alignment with your own values? Because here's the truth, the person next to you, they're not your competition. Their progress doesn't take anything away from yours. Their wins don't diminish your potential. Their path is theirs. Yours is yours. And trying to walk their road will only leave you lost on your own. The Stoics would encourage you to turn inward, to focus on what you can control, your mindset, your discipline, your clarity. They'd remind you, true greatness is not measured in applause. It's measured in how you rise, especially when no one is watching. And there's a quiet kind of power in all of this. Because when you stop comparing, you start appreciating. You see your own progress more clearly. You honor your own journey. You even begin to celebrate others, not from insecurity, but from stillness, because you understand we're all walking different roads. And in the end, the only person you ever need to outperform is the person you used to be. 3. Seeking everyone's approval. You can't control what others think. In a world obsessed with likes, shares, and constant validation, there's one quiet truth we've forgotten. You can't control what other people think of you, and more importantly, you don't need to. Approval is fragile. It's unpredictable. One day they love you, the next day, they misunderstand everything you say. One group applauds your courage. Another criticizes that same courage as arrogance. You try to keep up, you shapeshift, you soften your words, filter your truth, shrink your presence just enough to keep the peace. And slowly, almost without noticing, you start losing yourself. You trade authenticity for acceptance. And what do you get in return? A life that may look light on the surface, but feels hollow underneath. The Stoics saw this trap long before social media ever existed. They knew the danger of living for others' approval. If you live according to the applause of others, they warned, you will die with their silence. Let that settle in. Because when your peace depends on being liked, you've handed your freedom to strangers. When you live for applause, you become a performer, not a person. And the audience, it changes constantly. Which means the rules always change, and so does your identity. But there's another way, a braver way, the Stoic way. Live by your own values, not by other people's expectations. Let your choices be guided by what you know is right, not by how others might react. Because here's the truth. Trying to please everyone is a game you can never win. And the more you try, the more exhausted you become. The more disconnected you feel. The more you begin to forget who you even are without the mask. So ask yourself, honestly, how many decisions have I made just to avoid judgment? How many times have I stayed silent, not because I agreed, but because I feared rejection? How often have I worn a smile while hiding my truth, just to belong? The Stoics would look you in the eye and say, peace begins the moment you stop performing for others and start aligning your life with your inner compass. Marcus Aurelius said it bluntly, it never ceases to amaze me, we all love ourselves more than other people, yet we care more about their opinion than our own. That quote cuts deep, because it's true. How often do we betray our own voice, just to hear someone else's approval? But what if you didn't need that approval? What if you could release the weight of trying to be understood, liked, or accepted by everyone? Then what kind of energy would that free up in your life? What kind of peace would that unlock in your mind? Living with integrity doesn't mean you'll always be popular. It means you choose what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. It means you speak with honesty, even when it shakes the room. It means you allow others to misunderstand you, and don't lose sleep over it. Because your goal is no longer to be understood by everyone. MCC Hun. Harder to break. Your goal is to be true to yourself. And yes, it might be uncomfortable. Some people will walk away. Some won't get it, but the ones who stay, the ones who see you clearly, those are the relationships built on truth, not performance. And when you stop chasing approval, something powerful happens. You begin to act from strength, not from insecurity. You become harder to offend, harder to manipulate, because your choices are no longer based on crowd reactions. They're rooted in clarity, purpose, and peace. So if you're ready to reclaim your life, start here. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Stop waiting for permission to be fully yourself. Stop measuring your worth by other people's moods. Live in such a way that your peace is no longer up for negotiation. Because the moment you stop seeking approval, you feel something more powerful than being liked. You feel free. 4. Fear of failure. Every mistake is a lesson to grow. Let's talk about a word that makes people flinch: failure. We've been conditioned to see it as something final, something shameful. A black mark, a red X, a reason to hide. But the Stoics saw it differently. They understood a timeless truth that many of us forget in a world obsessed with polished outcomes. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's a part of it. It's not a dead end, it's a doorway. Not a verdict, but a valuable teacher. It's the honest mirror most people avoid, but the Stoic welcomes with open eyes. We live in a culture that glorifies results and hides the process. We see the applause but not the agony. We witness the highlight but miss the hard nights. And so, when failure does come, as it inevitably will, it feels like weakness. It feels like proof that you weren't good enough. But that feeling is an illusion. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor strengthens the body." He wasn't being poetic. He was being painfully real. Failure, when faced directly, without denial, without blame, is one of life's most powerful difficulties. Why? Because it forces you to see what's real. It strips away ego. It reveals what you don't yet know. And then, if you're willing, it invites you to rise, not as the same person, but as someone wiser. But let's not pretend it's easy. Fear shows up quickly. What if I fail in front of them? What if I'm not enough? What if I try and still fall flat? The Stoic response: so what? So what if you fall short? You learn. You adjust. You try again, this time with sharper focus, with deeper resilience. Fear only holds power when you treat it like a wall. But once you step through it, you realize something liberating. That wall, it was mostly in your mind. Here's the hidden cost of fearing failure. You end up failing anyway, just in silence. You fail to grow. You fail to risk. You fail to live fully. Not because you tried and missed, but because you never tried. And that, right there, is the real failure. Staying still, not moving, letting fear make your choices for you. The Stoics didn't teach you to be fearless. They taught you to act in spite of fear, to honor courage as the willingness to show up even when the outcome is uncertain. So shift your internal question. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What will I miss if I don't try?" Because here's the truth most people learn too late. Regret weighs more than failure ever will. And think of this. Every person you admire, every author, artist, leader, athlete, they didn't succeed because they never failed. They succeeded because they used failure. They built from it. They kept going. So today, give yourself permission to stumble. Give yourself permission to not be perfect. To make mistakes, not because you don't care, but because you care enough to keep showing up. When you make peace with imperfection, when you see mistakes not as proof of inadequacy, but as proof that you're alive, you're learning, and you're engaged in something that truly matters, then you unlock something that no failure can take away: momentum. And here's one more powerful truth. If you're not failing sometimes, you're not aiming high enough. And if you're growing from your failures, then you're not failing at all. 5. Holding grudges. Forgiveness frees your mind and energy. Grudges are like emotional luggage, heavy, bulky, and often filled with things we no longer need but keep carrying anyway. They don't always shout, but they sit quietly in the back of your mind. A subtle tension, a background noise you've learned to live with. But that low hum of resentment, it drains you. The Stoics would ask you one powerful question in this moment. Why? Epictetus once said, "It is not he who reviles or strikes you who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting." In other words, it's not the original act that continues to hurt you, it's your attachment to it. The story you replay, the meaning you reinforce, the emotional wound you keep picking at, hoping it will heal, while unknowingly keeping it open. Letting go doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. It means recognizing that you can't build a peaceful life while holding on to the burning wreckage of old anger. It means realizing you can't move forward if you're still shackled to what's behind you. Now, let's be clear. Forgiveness is not approval. It's not pretending it didn't happen. It's not excusing someone's cruelty or minimizing harm. It's not about them. It's about you. It's about choosing to stop pouring your energy into a moment that's long gone. Choosing to stop being then been defined by someone else's behavior. Choosing freedom over fixation. Think of it this way. Every time you mentally rehearse that betrayal, every time you replay that argument, or refeel that insult, you're spending your peace like currency. And what do you get in return? Bitterness, tension, a sense of moral righteousness that slowly poisons your own joy. The Stoics teach detachment not out of coldness but out of clarity. They remind us that while we can't control what others do, we can control what we carry. And some burdens simply aren't worth holding anymore. So ask yourself, what do I gain by holding on to this resentment? What am I afraid will happen if I let it go? Who would I become without this anger defining me? These questions are difficult, but they are the doorway to something better. And because the truth is, forgiveness isn't something you give to them. It's a gift you give yourself. It clears your inner space. It softens the grip of the past. It allows you to return fully to your own life. There is profound strength in choosing peace when revenge seems justified. In walking away without needing the last word. In healing not for attention, not for validation but for your own sanity. But MCC Hun. Forgiveness doesn't say, what happened was okay. It says, what happened will no longer control how I live today. That's not surrender. That's power. Let that be your quiet revolution. Let that be the release that frees you. Because life is far too short to keep dragging old pain into new mornings. And your peace is far too precious to keep reliving stories that should have ended long ago. 6. Fear of the future. Live in the present. There's a certain kind of anxiety that doesn't scream, it whispers. A low, steady hum that plays in the background of our minds. What if it all goes wrong? What if I lose everything I've worked for? What if tomorrow brings something I'm not ready for? We live in the future far more than we realize. Not in reality, but in projection, in possibilities that haven't happened, in fears that haven't materialized, in conversations we haven't had, in scenarios that may never come true. And in doing so, we abandon the only place that's ever been real. The present. The Stoics were not fortune tellers. But they were experts at presence. They understood that the future, no matter how carefully we imagine or plan for it, is not ours. It doesn't belong to us. It's not a place we can live. At best, it's a guess, a shadow flickering on the wall of our imagination. And yet, we hand over our peace to it. We let it invade our sleep, hijack our focus, poison the joy in what's already happening, right here, right now. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful emperors in history, wrote in his private reflections, not to impress, but to stay grounded. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason that today arm you against the present. That wasn't an abstract idea. It was a practice, a way of thinking, because the truth is, you don't need to solve tomorrow today. You only need to show up for today, fully, honestly, intentionally. But most of us don't. Instead, we obsess over the endless what-ifs. What if I fail? What if they leave? What if this doesn't work out? And the Stoics, calm, steady, unshaken, would say, what if it does, and if it doesn't? Will fear change anything? Will worrying make it hurt less? Will panic help you face it better? Worrying, they believed, is a misuse of imagination. It gives you none of tomorrow's clarity, only today's confusion. It drains your energy, steals your sleep, blinds you to the simple joys around you. Ironically, the fear of what hasn't happened. often causes more suffering than the thing we're afraid might happen. But the Stoics didn't just say, don't worry. They practiced a powerful tool, premeditatio malorum, the mental rehearsal of worst-case scenarios, not to dwell in fear, but to walk through it in the mind, calmly, with reason. So if hardship ever comes, you're not caught off guard. You're ready. You've met it before. This practice isn't obsession, it's preparation. It's not panic, it's poise. It teaches you this. You are not at the mercy of the unknown. You are equipped with reason, with resilience, with presence. And that's what prepares you for anything. So if your thoughts keep drifting into tomorrow, pause. Breathe. Ask, what is real right now? What can I control in this moment? Am I building fear or building strength? Because every second you spend in a future that hasn't come is a second you're not living your real life. You're not seeing the sunlight pouring through your window. You're not hearing the voice of someone you love. You're not noticing the breath that's keeping you alive. Then Boneyar not here. The Stoics knew. The present is where your power lives. It's where love grows, where discipline is built, where peace is planted. And when tomorrow finally arrives, as it always does, you'll face it not with worrying, but with the quiet, grounded strength you've been developing all along. MCC Hun. 7. Clinging to the past, you can't change it, but you can learn from it. There's something quietly tragic about the way we carry the past. Not in photo albums or journal entries, but deep inside us, in thoughts that loop like old songs. In memories we revisit not to learn, but to relive what already hurt us. The past, it's done, gone, untouchable. And yet, somehow, it still rules over us. Not because it has any real power, but because we keep handing it the keys. The Stoics saw this clearly. They didn't deny that the past shapes us, but they warned, don't let it define you. Because when you cling to what's already happened, to what was lost, to the things you regret, to the pain you never asked for, you begin to disconnect from what's still possible. Epictetus once said, don't let the force of impression carry you away. Say to it, wait a moment. Let me see what you are and what you represent. Let me test you. That's Stoic clarity. That's what it means to live with awareness. To pause before falling into the trap of old emotions. To separate who you are now from what you once endured. The past is not your identity. It's not a tattoo on your soul. It's information. It's instruction. It's a lesson, not a sentence. Then been mabut too often. We live like it's carved into our skin. We replay old conversations, obsess over decisions we can't undo, carry guilt like a shadow that won't detach. And the more we feed these memories, the more we shrink who we are to a version of us that no longer exists. The Stoics would meet that version of you with gentleness, but also with challenge. They'd remind you, you're not that person anymore. You've changed. See, Hun. And more than that, you're still changing. So why keep punishing yourself for what a younger, less aware version of you did, when they were simply doing the best they could with what they knew at the time? The work isn't to forget. The work is to transform. Ask yourself honestly, what am I still holding onto that no longer serves me? Is this memory guiding me or haunting me? If I release this old story, who might I become? Then these questions are not easy, but they are liberating. Because the past is not a prison, it's a teacher. But only if you stop obsessing over the pain and start extracting the lesson. That's where peace begins. Forgiveness is part of this too. Not just for others, but for yourself. You are not here to carry a lifetime of guilt. You are not meant to bleed endlessly from wounds that were never given a chance to heal. MCC Hun. And here's the paradox. When you let go of the past, your hands are finally free to build, to create, to embrace the future with both arms. Your heart gets lighter. Your mind gets clearer. You stop looking backward for closure and start looking inward for clarity. You don't need to rewrite the story. You just need to stop letting it write your present. So let go, not in anger, not in denial, but in wisdom. Then let the past be what it truly is. The soil you grew from, not the weight you have to carry. Because the moment you loosen your grip on what was, you open yourself to what can be, and peace, real peace, comes not from erasing the past, but from choosing not to live there anymore. 8. Talking too much. Silence is wisdom and self-control, and MCC Hun. And now we come to something modern life doesn't often reward, but the Stoics knew was a sign of strength, the rare art of saying less. In a world addicted to noise, it's easy to forget the rare and radical power of saying less. But when you do choose to speak, let those words be measured, not automatic. Let them rise from clarity, not ego. Speak only when what you say is true, necessary, and aligned with your values. Silence, not to prove your point, not to seek validation. Because the wise aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who know when to let silence say everything. Silence, when chosen with intention, is a force. It demands presence. It commands respect. It creates room for listening, for understanding, for truth. In a loud world, being the one who pauses instead of reacts, listens instead of interrupts, reflects instead of rants, that's power. Now let's turn inward once more, to another trap that drains our peace not through sound but through obsession. 9. Focusing on external things. True peace comes from within. Look around. How much of your energy, your thoughts, your time is being spent chasing things outside yourself? Status, image, possessions, recognition. We've been conditioned to believe that joy is just around the corner. One more promotion, one more compliment, one more expensive item. But the Stoics, they saw through this illusion centuries ago. To them, peace wasn't about what you have or how others see you. When all of that is stripped away, they understood something modern society keeps forgetting. Anything external can be taken. Wealth, praise, popularity, even relationships. And if your sense of peace depends on something fragile, you've built your life on sand. The moment your inner calm relies on something outside of your control, you become vulnerable, easily shaken, easily lost. Marcus Aurelius, yes, the emperor of Rome himself, was surrounded by wealth, luxury, and power. Yet in his private writings, he reminded himself, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. That line carries more truth than most self-help books ever will. Because true peace doesn't come when you finally get everything you wanted. It comes when you let go of believing you need more to be enough. This doesn't mean rejecting success or ambition. The Stoics weren't against prosperity, they were against detachment. Enjoy what life gives you, but don't become dependent on it. Use resources wisely, but never let your identity be tied to them. It's the difference between freedom and slavery. Imagine your mind like a garden. If you spend all your time planting in other people's yards, seeking approval, chasing trends, comparing your life to filtered images, your own garden withers. But when you turn inward, water your values, cultivate discipline, tend to your inner clarity, something profound takes root. Self-possession, contentment, sovereignty. The Stoics would ask you this: are you chasing admiration or alignment? Do you feel peace in solitude, or only when praised? And if everything external were stripped away, who would remain? These questions aren't easy, but they lead to something priceless. A calm that doesn't rise and fall with your bank account. A strength that doesn't crumble with criticism. A clarity that doesn't need applause to be real. When you stop chasing what you can't control, you begin to reclaim what matters most. Your character, your values, your peace. You no longer wait for life to become perfect before you feel whole. You no longer outsource your worth to the ever-changing opinions of others. And slowly, you begin to see that all the peace you were searching for out there was quietly waiting for you in here. So look within, not because the world is bad, but because your power, your peace has always lived inside you. And the more attention you give to that truth, the more uncheckable your calm becomes no matter what the world gives or takes away. 10. Being emotionally reactive. Master your emotions before they master you. Emotional control doesn't mean becoming numb. It doesn't mean faking serenity or forcing yourself to smile through storms. It means feeling everything fully without letting it dictate your next move. Seneca said it with clarity. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. You see, adversity invites emotion, strong, sometimes overwhelming feelings. But to the Stoics, these weren't threats. They were tests. Each one an opportunity to pause, to observe, to choose. Because emotions, especially the intense ones, aren't obstacles. They're teachers, if you're willing to listen. But when you're reactive, when you allow emotions to hijack your voice, your tone, your choices, you give up your power. Anger speaks instead of you. Fear takes the wheel. Pain writes the script, and suddenly, you're not responding, you're reliving. Caught in the storm instead of grounded in the eye of it. But what if you could pause, just for a moment? Take a breath. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? Is this helping or harming me? Will I regret this reaction an hour from now? That tiny space between emotion and action, that's where your freedom lives. That's where clarity begins. The more you practice it, the stronger you become. Gradually, you create a new pattern, one where peace overrides panic, and presence replaces impulse. You're no longer whipped around by emotional highs and lows. You become steady, anchored, unshakable. And here's what the Stoics understood that most people still miss. Emotions are not commands, they are signals, not sentences. They are information, not instructions. Anger may arise to show you something feels unjust. But that doesn't mean you must explode. Anxiety may visit to alert you to uncertainty. But that doesn't mean you have to spiral. The emotion delivers the message, but you decide what to do with it. Mastering emotion isn't about denying reality. It's about shaping your response. And in that practice, you begin to make better decisions, build stronger relationships, and carry yourself with a quiet power, especially when others lose control. So the next time a surge of emotion rises, pause. Feel it, acknowledge it, but don't hand it the steering wheel. Because every reaction you give becomes part of your story. And when you choose discipline, again and again, that discipline becomes your character. The Stoics didn't seek to be cold, they sought to be clear. And clarity always begins with one powerful act, the pause. Indifference isn't emptiness, it's inner clarity. It's standing in your own strength and saying, you no longer get to disturb my peace. 11. Seeking revenge. The best response is indifference. When someone wrongs us, the natural impulse is fire, retaliation. We imagine the perfect comeback, the satisfying moment when they finally feel what we felt. It gives us a rush, a fleeting sense of justice. But revenge isn't justice, it's captivity. A loop that keeps your peace tied to their behavior. The Stoics saw this clearly. Revenge is not power, it's dependence. It means you're still emotionally connected to the one who hurt you. You're waiting, hoping, needing something from them, an apology, an acknowledgement, even their suffering. But the Stoic path says, let them go. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. It's not about weakness. It's not about pretending you weren't hurt. It's about reclaiming your inner space. It's choosing not to let someone else's darkness drag you out of your light. Because the moment you stoop to their level, you let them shape you. You give them a seat at your table, inside your mind, in your character. But indifference is liberation. It says, you don't deserve my time. My pain doesn't define me. I'm moving forward. That's not avoidance. That's discipline. That's the kind of calm that rattles people who expected you to shatter. And here's the paradox: the ones who seek revenge the most are often the ones still hurting. The most, still bleeding, still needing closure. But as the Stoics would say, closure doesn't come from them, it comes from within you. You don't reclaim your story by making them suffer. You reclaim it by choosing to stop suffering yourself. So if you're holding on to vengeance, let it go. Not for them, for you. Let their actions stay theirs. Let your peace speak louder than any retaliation ever could. Because, in a world that glorifies rage and claps for comebacks, choosing stillness, choosing indifference is a radical kind of strength. It's the strength that says, I am no longer yours to disturb. And now, we come to another form of suffering, not loud, not vengeful, but silent, persistent, and often self-inflicted. 12. Worrying about what you can't control. Focus on what's within your power. There's a kind of pain that doesn't come from the outside, it comes from how we think. The sleepless nights, the racing thoughts, the replaying of events we can't undo, the endless forecasting of things we can't predict. This is the quiet war so many people live in, the war against reality. And it's a battle the Stoics refused to fight. At the core of their philosophy was one of the simplest, yet most liberating truths. There are things you can control, and there are things you cannot. And peace begins the moment you learn the difference. Epictetus taught this as the foundation of a free life. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. At first glance, it sounds obvious, but living it, that takes work. Because no, you can't control how others behave. You can't control the economy, the weather, time, or the outcome of every situation. You can't change the past and you certainly can't force the future. But here's what you can control: how you respond, what you choose to focus on, the thoughts you feed, the actions you take, and the meaning you give to what happens. Most of our stress doesn't come from the situation itself, it comes from our resistance to it. We don't just feel pain, we feel frustration because we believe it shouldn't be this way. We want people to act differently. We want life to follow our schedule. We want clarity in a world that gives none. And so we suffer not because reality is unbearable, but because we demand that it be different. The Stoics would say, you don't control the wind, but you do control the sails. That's not giving up, it's getting smart. It's not resignation, it's redirection. When you stop trying to move what cannot be moved, you free up energy to move yourself. You become lighter, more present, more powerful. So ask yourself, is this thought helping me act? Or just making me anxious? Am I obsessing over what I can't influence? What small, real action can I take right now? Because even in the middle of chaos, you always have a choice. Even if it's just your breath, your mindset, your tone of voice. And inside that tiny choice, peace begins. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They simply refused to pour their energy into what was beyond reach. They weren't passive, they were precise. Careful with what they gave their attention to. And now, we turn to one final illusion: the belief that life is about adding more, instead of releasing what weighs you down. The Stoics weren't just philosophers. They were practitioners of presence, of discipline, of control. And in mastering their minds, they didn't merely survive life's chaos, they transcended it. So if your heart feels heavy, your mind restless, and your days filled with noise, come back to one question. Is this within my control? If the answer is yes, then act, calmly and deliberately. If the answer is no, then release it, without resentment. That's not indifference. That's not apathy. That's wisdom. That's freedom. Because the moment you stop trying to rearrange the wind, you begin to learn how to steer your own ship. And that's where real strength is born, not in controlling the uncontrollable, but in mastering what's yours. And now we come to one of the most tempting, but dangerous illusions of modern life. 13. Being a slave to desires. Moderation leads to balance and serenity. Desire is not wrong, it's not the villain. In fact, it's deeply human. We all desire comfort, love, recognition, adventure, belonging, beauty, progress. These longings aren't evil, they're part of our design. But the danger is when desire stops being a choice and becomes a chase. When we no longer decide what we want, but are dragged by it. When we don't pursue value but pursue stimulation. And when enough is no longer a word we recognize. The Stoics saw unexamined desire as one of the greatest threats to inner stillness. Not because wanting something is bad, but because when desire becomes need, it turns into bondage. Seneca, who lived in the heart of Rome's wealth and temptation, said it best. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. Poverty, then, is not about empty pockets, it's about an empty center, the kind of emptiness that never quiets, never rests, never says, "This is enough." Because it's not chasing fulfillment. It's chasing the illusion of fulfillment. And this illusion whispers constantly, one more item, one more like, one more goal. And then you'll be happy. But peace doesn't live at the finish line. It lives in the moment you realize you don't need to chase anything to be complete. That's why the Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort. They would sleep on hard floors, wear simple clothes, eat bland food. Not to punish themselves but to liberate themselves, to remind their minds and bodies. I can live without what the world tells me I can't. And the moment you realize that, desire loses its power over you. That's where true freedom begins, not in more, but in mastery. Meanwhile, modern life teaches the opposite. More is better, bigger is better. We scroll endlessly, shop impulsively, indulge excessively. We collect more, but feel less. Not because we don't have enough, but because we've been taught that enough doesn't exist. So pause, ask yourself honestly, what am I chasing right now that's costing me peace? Is this desire aligned with my values, or simply a distraction? If I stopped reaching for it, would I feel less? Or finally feel still? Desire is fire, and if left unchecked, it consumes. It burns through your focus, your finances, your energy, your relationships, your identity. But when you bring awareness to your wants, when you slow down and question the craving, you reclaim your place at the center of your life. The Stoics would ask, am I choosing this desire or is it choosing me? Because when you live with intention, when you pursue only what serves your highest good, you stop being a slave. You become the master. And mastery doesn't mean having it all. It means needing less. It means moving through the world light, clear, and free. So start small. One desire, one craving, one restless impulse. Sit with it. Question it. Ask if it truly leads to stillness, or just promises stimulation. Then because serenity is not found in what's endless. It's found in what's enough. You'll never find peace by feeding the hunger for more. Because peace doesn't live in excess. It lives in enough. And when you choose moderation not as punishment, but as freedom, you begin to feel a stillness the world can't sell you. A quiet but uncheckable voice inside says, I have what I need. I am who I choose to be. And that is enough. PC Hun. 14. Fearing solitude. Loneliness is an opportunity for self-discovery. There's a hidden fear that pulses beneath much of modern life, a fear we rarely admit, but often feel. It's not the fear of physical danger, not the fear of failure or rejection. It's the fear of being alone. Not just physically alone, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually alone. The fear of sitting in silence with no one to impress, No feed to scroll, no noise to numb. The fear of hearing our own thoughts without someone else's voice drowning them out. So we fill every moment. Music, podcasts, messages, notifications, scrolling, swiping. Noise, 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 because silence. It exposes things we've buried, but the Stoics would ask you something simple and cutting. If you can't sit with yourself, how can you ever feel truly at peace? Seneca, in his letters, didn't just suggest solitude, he celebrated it. To him, it wasn't isolation, it was cultivation. A sacred space for refining the soul, for examining what matters, for seeing yourself with clarity not through the eyes of others, but through your own. He once wrote, "A man who is afraid to be alone should be afraid of himself." And that line stings, because it's true. So much of what we call loneliness isn't about missing others. It's discomfort with ourselves, with what rises when the distractions fall away, with the silence that holds a mirror to our mind. What are we avoiding? What emotions have we muted with noise? What truth have we kept buried under the busyness? Solitude doesn't create that discomfort, it simply reveals it. And yet, in that revealing lies the opportunity for something rare, self-mastery. Because when you learn to sit with yourself, really sit, without fidgeting, reaching, or distracting, you stop needing constant validation. You stop chasing applause. You stop filling your calendar just to escape the quiet. And slowly, something beautiful begins to unfold. You remember who you are without the noise. You reconnect with values that got lost in the crowd. You start hearing your own inner voice again, the one that's been whispering beneath the surface, waiting for your attention. In solitude, you don't become less alive. You become more deliberate, more grounded, more present. Ask yourself, what am I afraid I'll feel if I sit in silence? What part of me have I been ignoring by always staying busy? What might I discover if I stop running and start listening? Solitude isn't about rejecting people. It's about no longer rejecting yourself. It's about realizing that the one person you'll spend your entire life with is you. And making peace with that person is the foundation for any lasting strength. The Stoics embrace solitude not as retreat but as refinement. Like steel placed in fire, like a sword in stillness, not to weaken it but to sharpen its edge. Because when you can sit quietly with yourself and not flinch, not run, not apologize, you awaken a kind of strength that few people ever touch. It was in solitude that the Stoics found clarity. They didn't just sit alone, they sharpened themselves there. In the stillness, they didn't become lost. They became found. So don't run from silence. Don't rush to fill the space. Sit in it. Feel it. Let it teach you. Because once you learn to be content in your own company, you stop fearing rejection. You stop chasing people just to escape yourself. You no longer beg the world to make you feel whole. You carry your peace within, and bring it wherever you go. And now, we reach the final piece. A truth that feels uncomfortable, but necessary because no peace can last without this one thing. 15. Avoiding effort. Without discipline, there is no growth. And no peace. We all want peace. But we want it clean. We want it soft. We want it without the process. We want clarity without confusion. Strength without struggle. Mastery without repetition. We want the reward, but skip the road. But the Stoics would remind you, you can't arrive at peace by avoiding the path that builds it. Avoiding effort is seductive. It whispers, you've done enough. You can do it tomorrow. Take the shortcut. And the danger is, we listen. Little by little, that whisper becomes our rhythm. The mind weakens. The will softens. And the gap between who you are and who you could be quietly widens. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, fought wars, endured betrayal, sickness, and loss. And yet, he rose early every single day to write, to reflect, to train his mind. Why? Because he knew. If you don't shape your character, the world will. And the world rarely shapes gently. Effort isn't just physical. It's mental, it's spiritual. It's showing up when it's inconvenient. Doing the hard thing when no one is watching. Keeping your word to yourself, even when motivation fades and comfort calls. Without effort, peace becomes fragile. It turns into wishful thinking, pleasant until tested. Because peace without discipline, that's not stillness. That's sedation. Life will test you. And without strength, you'll break. So ask yourself, where have I chosen ease over growth? What am I postponing in the name of comfort? What would my life look like if I honored discipline as the gateway to the person I want to become? The Stoics never promised comfort, they promised character. And character is forged, not found. Avoiding effort is not self-care, it's self-abandonment. It's delaying the stronger, calmer, clearer version of you that only shows up after you've done the work. Because here's the truth. The peace you crave is earned in the early mornings, in the uncomfortable choices, in the repetition no one claps for, in the refusal to quit. Do it long enough, and something profound happens. You stop just feeling peaceful. You become uncheckable, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. So if you're tired of chaos, start with effort. If you want peace, build it, brick by brick, with routine, with reflection, with intention. Show up for your life when it's hard, when it's boring, when no one sees. Because real peace isn't found in the absence of effort. It lives in the aftermath of it. It's not handed to you by the world. It's carved by the choices you repeat. Peace is not comfort. Peace is clarity. Clarity in the middle of noise. Stillness in the middle of storms. Discipline when excuses are loud. And here's what the Stoics knew better than anyone. If you want real peace, don't look for it in possessions. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't depend on other people to give it to you. Instead, remove what disturbs it. Let go of comparison. Release the need for control. Drop the grudges. Unplug from noise. Face the silence. Embrace the effort. And when you do, you'll feel it. Not as a moment, but as a way of being. A steady rhythm inside you. A quiet confidence. A presence that doesn't rise and fall with the world. Because peace isn't a destination. It's a decision repeated, breath by breath, choice by choice, moment by moment. And that decision, it's yours to make, starting now.